Okay, so picture this. It's the early 1900s,
Mm-hmm.
a time of, burgeoning hope, societal change,
Yeah.
and you're looking for love,
Yeah.
maybe flipping through those Lonely Hearts ads in the newspaper.
Right.
Little you know, you might be crossing paths with a man juggling multiple wives
Huh.
and harboring a very dark secret.
Wow.
This is the reality faced by the women who encountered James P. Watson,
Oh, yeah, him.
the man the press would later call Bluebeard.
Bluebeard.
We've got some really fascinating material on Watson,
Okay.
and we're going to unpack it all,
Great.
explore his motivations,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe uncover some unsettling truths about human nature
I'm ready
on the
for
way.
it. Yeah, you know what strikes me about this case is that it unfolds at a time when the very idea of a serial killer was practically inconceivable,
Right. It's hard to imagine.
It was a period of huge societal shifts,
Yeah.
a time when trust and vulnerability were perhaps taken for granted,
Yeah, you're right.
you know?
It's hard for us to imagine a time when that concept was so foreign.
Totally.
So let's start by kind of getting a sense of who this man was before he became infamous.
Okay.
What do we know about Watson's early life?
Well, his life began with hardship.
Yeah.
Born Charles Gillam, he experienced a childhood marked by really, I think, abandonment and abuse.
Oh, wow.
His father left early on,
Okay.
and both his mother and stepfather subjected him to neglect
Wow.
and mistreatment.
That's terrible.
This deeply troubled upbringing
Yeah.
could very well be a key to understanding his later actions.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking to think of a child enduring that kind of trauma.
It is.
Is there any indication that these early experiences might have contributed to his later, manipulative tendencies?
It's certainly a possibility.
Okay.
While we can't draw a direct causal link,
Right.
psychological research suggests that childhood trauma
Right.
can significantly impact development,
Right.
sometimes manifesting in a need for control,
Okay.
a lack of empathy.
And a propensity for manipulation.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's a chilling thought,
Yeah,
but it makes a lot of sense.
it does.
And this pattern of manipulation seems to emerge really early on.
Yeah.
Even as a young man, he began adopting different identities.
So-
First Joseph Holden,
Huh.
then Dan Bolton,
Right.
before finally settling on James Watson.
Yeah, precisely. And this constant name changing wasn't simply a youthful indiscretion.
Oh, wow.
It became like a hallmark of his modus operandi,
Oh, really?
a tool for deception that he wielded throughout his life.
Wow.
It's as if he was constantly shedding his past,
Okay.
creating new personas to lure unsuspecting victims into his web.
It's almost like he was living multiple lives.
Right.
Each with its own set of lies and deceptions.
Exactly.
Which leads us to his infamous Lonely Hearts scheme.
Yes.
It's both ingenious and appalling.
I know what's remarkable is how he tailored his approach to the social context of the time.
Okay.
Lonely Hearts ads were gaining popularity.
Offering a seemingly respectable avenue for finding love and companionship,
Yeah.
he exploited this growing trend,
Mhm.
presenting himself as a wealthy, upstanding gentleman seeking a wife.
So he wasn't just preying on vulnerable women.
Right.
He was strategically targeting a specific demographic,
Yeah.
using a method that was becoming increasingly socially acceptable.
Exactly.
That's incredibly cunning.
Absolutely. And he didn't stop there.
Oh, no.
He specifically sought out wealthy women,
Okay.
quickly proposing marriage,
Oh, my gosh.
and then systematically draining their finances.
Wow.
It was a meticulously crafted trap
Yeah.
designed to exploit both their emotional and financial vulnerabilities.
But how did he manage to gain their trust so quickly? Was he just that charming?
All right.
Or were there other factors at play?
While charm undoubtedly played a role,
Right.
he also understood the power of social cues.
Okay.
He dressed impeccably,
Okay.
used sophisticated language,
Yeah.
and presented himself as a man of means. He played on the societal expectations of the time,
Okay.
fulfilling the archetype of the ideal husband
Right.
that many women were conditioned to seek.
Yeah, it's a stark reminder that even in a time of progress,
Right.
societal expectations can sometimes make people vulnerable
Yeah,
to exploitation.
absolutely.
And as if the financial deception wasn't enough,
I know.
he went a step further,
He did.
requesting lists of family and friends from his wives.
And here's where the true darkness of his plan becomes apparent.
Okay.
He used those lists to maintain the illusion that his wives were still alive,
What?
even after they had vanished, or worse.
Oh my gosh.
Imagine the cruelty of writing letters to grieving families,
Oh, wow.
pretending to be their loved ones,
That's horrible.
while simultaneously covering up their murders.
That's just chilling.
It is.
To think he was actively manipulating these families, giving them false hope,
Yeah.
or he was literally getting away with murder.
It's awful.
But this wasn't just about money for Watson, was it?
No, I don't think so.
The level of violence escalated over time,
Right.
moving beyond financial exploitation
Yes.
to something far more sinister.
You're absolutely right. Initially, his murders were staged to appear like tragic accidents,
Yeah.
often disguised as drownings.
Oh, wow.
During seemingly innocent boating trips,
Right.
it was a calculated way to avoid suspicion
Right.
and maintain his carefully constructed facade.
Wow.
But over time, the violence became more overt, more brutal.
The murder of Elizabeth Pryor is a particularly horrifying example.
Indeed, the sheer brutality of that crime,
Yeah.
bludgeoning her with a sledgehammer and then setting her house on fire,
Oh, my God.
is a stark departure from his earlier methods.
Wow.
It suggests a possible psychological shift,
Okay.
perhaps a growing need for control,
Yeah.
even a perverse satisfaction in the act itself.
It's terrifying to consider
It is.
that his motives might have extended beyond mere greed and deception
Right.
to something far more sinister.
Yeah.
But let's step back for a moment.
Oh, okay.
How was he able to maintain this incredibly complex web of deceit for so long?
Right.
Juggling multiple marriages, disappearing for extended periods,
Right.
it seems almost impossible.
He was a master manipulator,
Yeah.
a chameleon who adapted to his surroundings.
Okay.
He used the guise of frequent travel for work,
Okay.
sometimes posing as a collection agent, other times claiming to be a Secret Service agent.
Oh, wow.
These carefully crafted lies provided him with a plausible explanation for his absences, allowing him to move undetected between his victims and their unsuspecting families.
So while he was deceiving his wives,
Yeah.
he was also actively corresponding with their families,
Right.
furthering this elaborate charade.
Exactly.
But surely at some point someone must have become suspicious.
You would think so, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And you'd be right.
Okay.
It was one woman's intuition
Oh.
that ultimately proved to be Watson's undoing. Catherine Wambecker, suspicious of her husband,
Yeah.
who was, of course, Watson masquerading as Walter Andrews,
Jeez.
decided to hire a private detective.
What a smart move.
He was!
What did the detective uncover?
What he found was a Pandora's box
Oh, boy.
of incriminating evidence.
Oh.
Hidden away were multiple marriage licenses,
Oh, my goodness.
a trove of valuables belonging to other women,
Wow.
and most damning of all, a list of 20 women
Gosh.
with whom Watson was actively corresponding.
That's just astounding.
It is.
20 women.
It's a lot.
So what happened when Watson was confronted with this overwhelming evidence?
Yeah.
How did he react?
His reaction was, in a word, dramatic.
Okay.
Upon realizing he'd been caught, he attempted suicide
Oh, wow.
by cutting his own throat.
Wow.
A desperate act
Yeah.
that reveals the depths of his fear and desperation in that moment.
It's a fascinating psychological response.
It is.
Do you think it was a genuine suicide attempt?
Right.
Or a calculated performance intended to evoke sympathy
Right.
and potentially lessen his punishment?
That's a question that has puzzled those who've studied this case for years.
Yeah.
Was it a moment of genuine remorse and despair, or a cunning manipulation tactic?
Yeah.
It's difficult to say for sure.
I guess so.
The human mind is a complex and often contradictory thing,
Right.
especially when faced with such dire consequences.
Yeah, it certainly adds another layer of complexity to an already fascinating and disturbing story.
It does.
But the suicide attempt wasn't successful, was it?
No, he survived, and eventually, after a period of denial and attempts to downplay his actions, he confessed to killing at least 9 of his wives.
9 wives.
I know.
That's a staggering number.
It is.
What was his explanation for these heinous crimes?
Right.
Did he offer any justification or show any remorse?
His explanation was both chilling and perplexing.
Okay.
He claimed to be driven by an irresistible impulse.
Oh, wow.
A mighty power
Really?
that compelled him to murder.
Wow.
It was a classic defense.
Right.
One that raises questions about his mental state
Okay.
and whether he truly understood the gravity of his actions.
It's a classic case of a criminal trying to deflect responsibility.
Is.
But did the authorities buy it?
Yeah.
Did they believe his plans of an irresistible impulse?
That's a question that has haunted this case for Decades.
Yeah.
Was he genuinely mentally ill?
Right.
Or was this a calculated performance designed to escape the full weight of justice?
Right.
The lines are blurred.
Yeah.
And it's a question each of us has to grapple with as we delve deeper into his psyche.
It makes you wonder, was he a cold-blooded killer who
Right.
derived pleasure from the hunt?
Yeah.
Or was he truly tormented by some inner darkness he couldn't control?
Right.
It's a question we'll continue to explore as we dive further
Absolutely.
into this complex and unsettling case.
To gain further insight into his motivations,
Yeah.
authorities struck a deal with Watson
Okay.
in exchange for revealing the location of Nina Deloney's body.
Mhm.
One of his victims, he would be spared the death penalty
Okay.
and instead receive a life sentence in San Quentin prison.
So he essentially traded one life for another.
He did.
It must have been a difficult decision for the authorities.
It was.
But it also ensured that he would face consequences for his actions,
Right.
albeit not the ultimate punishment.
Right.
What was life like for Watson behind bars?
Yeah.
Did he finally confront the enormity of his crimes
Yeah.
and express any genuine remorse?
Well, that's where the story takes another intriguing turn.
Okay.
Life in San Quentin was in some ways a reflection of his life outside those prison walls. He couldn't help but try to manipulate and control those around him,
Oh, wow.
even while incarcerated.
So even behind bars, his manipulative tendencies persisted.
They did.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Did he target fellow inmates? Or was he trying to exert control over the prison staff?
His manipulations extended beyond the prison walls.
Oh, really?
Remember those lists of family and friends he collected from his wives? Well, they became a tool for a new scheme,
Okay.
one that would captivate the public's imagination
Wow.
and further cement his notoriety.
This is where it gets really interesting.
It is.
Tell me more about this new scheme.
Okay.
What was he up to?
He concocted a story about a hidden treasure worth a small fortune using details gleaned from his deceased wife's correspondence and personal belongings.
So he was essentially using the information he had gathered during his crimes to fuel a new deception,
Exactly.
even from behind bars. That's incredible. Who did he target with this story?
He targeted a journalist spinning this elaborate tale of hidden riches,
Okay.
lost mines, and secret maps.
Wow.
And incredibly, the journalist bought it,
Oh, my God.
hook, line, and sinker.
Wow. So even in prison, Watson was still able to manipulate people,
You was.
to weave a web of deception that drew them in.
It's amazing.
What happened next?
The journalist, convinced he was on the verge of a groundbreaking story, published a series of articles about Watson's supposed hidden treasure. This, of course, caused a media frenzy,
Yeah.
with people all over California scrambling to decipher the clues and unearth the fortune.
It's amazing how he was able to create such a stir from within a prison cell. But what of the treasure?
Right.
Did anyone ever find it?
Of course not. It was all a fabrication, another one of Watson's elaborate lies.
Oh, my goodness.
The journalist, realizing he had been duped, eventually sued Watson
Okay.
for wasting his time and resources.
That's understandable. To be led on such a wild goose chase must have been incredibly frustrating. What was Watson's response to the lawsuit?
Ever the manipulator, Watson countersued, claiming defamation.
Are you serious?
The whole thing turned into a legal circus, with both sides accusing the other of deceit and manipulation.
Oh, wow.
Ultimately, the judge dismissed both cases, recognizing the absurdity of the situation.
It sounds like Watson was relishing the attention,
He was.
even if it was negative.
Right.
It's almost as if he needed to be in control, to be pulling the strings, even from behind bars.
That's a keen observation. His need for control seems to have been a driving force throughout his life, both in his crimes and in his interactions with others. But amidst all this deception and manipulation,
Right.
did he ever express any genuine remorse for his actions?
Right.
Did his time in prison lead to any introspection or change?
That's a great question. Did he ever admit to the full extent of his crimes?
Whoa!
Or offer any explanation for his behavior beyond the irresistible impulse defense?
That's one of the most intriguing aspects of this case.
Yeah.
While he became a model prisoner on the surface, even assisting the prison's medical officer, some believe this was yet another calculated move to present himself in a favorable light.
So even his apparent good behavior could have been a form of manipulation. That's a chilling thought.
It's certainly possible. We can't know for sure what was going on in his mind.
Right.
He remained an enigma, a puzzle that even those who interacted with him daily couldn't fully decipher.
Wow.
His true feelings, his genuine motivations, if they ever existed, remained locked away behind those calculating eyes.
It sounds like he was a master of disguise,
He was.
able to present whatever facade was most beneficial to him at any given moment.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if he even knew who he truly was beneath all the layers of deception.
That's a profound question, and it's one that gets to the heart of what makes this case so compelling.
Yeah.
Was he a product of his traumatic past driven by forces beyond his control?
Right.
Or was he a cold and calculating predator who simply enjoyed the thrill of the hunt?
Right.
Or perhaps, as you suggest, he was a combination of both.
Yep.
A man trapped in a cycle of deception and manipulation that ultimately consumed him.
It's a question without a clear answer, one that leaves us grappling with the complexities of human nature and the dark potential that lies within us all.
And it's a question that continues to resonate today.
Yeah.
While Watson's story may be a relic of the past, it serves as a stark reminder that the potential for manipulation and deceit exists in every era, in every corner of society.
It's a sobering thought, one that compels us to examine our own perceptions of trust and the vulnerabilities we all carry.
Absolutely. And while we can't live in a constant state of fear and suspicion,
Right.
Watson's case underscores the importance of critical thinking, of questioning assumptions,
Yeah.
and of trusting our instincts when something seems amiss.
It's a valuable lesson, one that transcends the specifics of this particular case and speaks to the human condition as a whole. So with that in mind, let's turn our attention to the broader context of Watson's crimes. What can we learn from his story about the social and cultural landscape of the early 1900s,
Right.
a period marked by both progress and unsettling undercurrents?
It's fascinating to consider how Watson's crimes kind of intersected with a period of such immense social change.
Yeah.
The world was, emerging from a global war.
Right.
Women were fighting for their rights and independence.
Right.
And the traditional roles of men and women were being challenged.
And amidst all this upheaval,
Yeah.
Watson was exploiting those very vulnerabilities.
Exactly. He preyed on women who were seeking love,
Right.
companionship, and financial security.
Yeah.
Taking advantage of their hopes and dreams
Right.
for a better future.
You're right. He was a dark reflection of the anxieties and uncertainties at the time.
Totally.
A figure who embodied the fear that progress and liberation could also create new opportunities for exploitation.
His story exposes a dark undercurrent of that era. It reminds us that progress and enlightenment
Yeah.
don't always move in a straight line.
Right.
There are always those who seek to exploit the cracks in society,
Yeah.
those who prey on the vulnerable regardless of the era.
It makes you wonder how much has really changed since the 1920s
Right.
in terms of how we perceive danger and protect ourselves from those who prey on others. Are we any less susceptible to manipulation and deceit?
It's a question worth pondering.
Yeah.
We have more information at our fingertips
Right.
than ever before,
Yeah.
but does that translate to greater awareness and protection? Or are we in some ways more vulnerable than ever
Yeah.
in this digital age where anonymity and deception
Right.
are often just a click away?
It's a lot to consider.
It is.
On the one hand, we have access to background checks, online resources, and a greater awareness of the dangers of online scams
Right.
and predatory behavior.
Exactly.
But on the other hand, the internet provides new avenues for deception,
Yes.
making it easier than ever to create false identities and manipulate people from afar.
It's a double-edged sword. Technology can both empower and endanger us.
It really can.
It all comes down to awareness, critical thinking, and trusting our instincts.
Watson's case, despite its horrifying details, offers a valuable lesson about the importance of vigilance
It does.
and self-protection.
Absolutely.
We must always be aware of the potential for manipulation,
Right.
no matter how charming or convincing someone may seem.
Absolutely. And we need to be particularly vigilant in situations
Right.
where trust and vulnerability are involved,
Yeah.
whether it's online dating, financial transactions, or even seemingly harmless social interactions.
So what does this all mean for you, our listener? What struck you most about Watson's story? Was it his calculated cruelty,
Right.
his ability to maintain a facade for so long,
Yeah.
or the fact that he was able to exploit societal norms to his advantage?
Whatever resonated with you.
Yeah.
I hope this deep dive has provided a glimpse
Yes.
into the complexities of human behavior,
Yeah.
the allure of deception,
Right.
and the enduring power of the human spirit to seek justice and expose the truth. Watson's story may be a relic of the past,
Right.
But its echoes can still be felt today,
Yeah.
reminding us to remain vigilant,
Yes.
question assumptions, and never underestimate the capacity for darkness that exists within the human heart.
And perhaps just as importantly, it reminds us of the importance of empathy, compassion,
Absolutely.
and a willingness to help those who may be vulnerable to exploitation.
Right.
By understanding the tactics of those who seek to deceive,
Exactly.
we can better protect ourselves and those we care about.
Will said knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And by sharing these stories, by exploring the darker corners of human nature, we can hopefully shed some light on the patterns of deception and manipulation that continue to plague our world.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the chilling tale of James P. Watson.
It was a pleasure.
The Bluebeard Killer, his story serves as a cautionary tale,
It does.
reminding us that even in an age of progress and enlightenment, the shadows of deception and manipulation can lurk in the most unexpected places.
Absolutely.